Hi, this is Carolina, and I wanted to talk today about guilt and how guilt in some instances can actually be a symptom of nervous illness or anxiety, depression, sensitized nervous system, whatever you want to call it. The reason that I actually decided to do this today is because I was having a chat with a friend of mine this morning, and she was telling me how sometimes when she goes into a bit of a low mood, depressed state, first thing she notices is that she starts to feel guilty, and she'll feel guilty over things that happened years ago that really aren't relevant now. And I said, oh yeah, well that makes sense because guilt is actually a symptom of depression. And she was like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah. It's a symptom of anxiety, it's a symptom of depression. It's actually very common for people who are going through that to experience guilt. And guilt over the most silliest things. And so she was like surprised by that, and I can understand why she was surprised by that because I myself didn't know that for years. So for years I experienced a lot of guilt, and because I never knew it was a symptom, I believed the guilt. I believed that maybe I should be feeling guilty. So to give you an example, I remember when people would buy me presents for my birthday or for Christmas, I would act, really happy and thankful, but inside I would feel kind of shaky and like I was bad and guilty and like I didn't deserve it. And also I would just feel guilty over things that really were not things to be feeling guilty about, just little things. And so what I thought I would do is I would share with you how I use the 3-step technique that I talk about in another video, a 3-step technique to overcome anxiety, how I used that technique to overcome the guilt. And so a lot of the guilt for me, once I started really, doing the just letting the feelings be there, the 3-step technique, which is letting the feelings be there, letting the thoughts be there, relaxing the body and refocusing, a lot of the guilt kind of just dissipated by itself anyway. There was one that stuck, and that was, so obviously it really became a pattern for me. And so the first thing I did is I actually sort of questioned the guilt. So the guilt for me was that I would feel very, very guilty if I stayed home all day. Like I was just such a bad person if I stayed home all day. And oh my God, if it was sunny, then I was really bad. So basically I would go out every day. I would make sure that I went out and I did stuff outside of the house because if I stayed home, I was bad. So the first thing I did is I questioned this, and for me, I'm very lucky that I've got really good friends, and so I just texted a few of my friends and I said, hey girls, do you ever feel guilty if you're at home? Even if you're puttering around the house and you're getting stuff done, do you ever feel guilty because you didn't go outside? And especially if it's sunny, do you feel guilty when it's sunny? And they were like, no, what are you talking about? So when they answered that for me was like, okay, well that's interesting. So obviously this guilt isn't a universal thing. It was almost also like I felt like God would be angry with me, even though I'm not actually, I didn't grow up being religious, but it was like almost a feeling like that. So I was like, okay, so obviously other people don't have this feeling, so this isn't a universal thing. My husband doesn't have that feeling either. There's obviously a lot of people who don't have this feeling. So maybe I can't really trust this feeling. And the other thing I would ask myself is, okay, is me being at home hurting anyone? Because really, I believe the reason for guilt is a signal, isn't it? It's a signal. It's almost like when you put your hand in the fire and you get hurt, it's like, okay, that's a signal to get your hand out of the fire. And so really, I think guilt is nature's signal to go, that doesn't go with your values, or you're hurting someone, stop. But there was actually nothing that I needed to stop right then, because I wasn't actually hurting anyone by being at home. So that's kind of like the two things first that I did, that was just questioning. So that's not part of the 3-step technique, but I had to question this belief system. So once I questioned the belief system, what I did, and it took me about a month to rewire it. So every time that I would be at home, and I mean, it wasn't that many days really, it probably would have been in the month, it wouldn't have been that many days that I actually was at home, but somehow it only took a few of those days to really rewire it. So I'll give you an example. So the first day that I remember putting this into practice was I was at home all day, and I was actually doing my redoing my bookshelf, which is actually in the cupboard. And I remember getting that feeling of guilt. Oh, Carolina, you've been at home all day. Oh, you're bad, So having that come over me. So first thing that I did was like, am I hurting anyone? No. Is this thought really universal? No. A lot of people don't have this. So then it's just like, okay, let the feelings be there. They'll go in their own time. Let the thoughts pop in, that's fine. Relax the body, and then just go back to focusing on taking the books out, rearranging them, getting the ones that I don't want, putting them away, blah, blah, blah. So really just refocusing on what I was doing. And just like this, I did that throughout other days. So other days when, I stayed home and I started having that feeling that I'm really bad, I'd be like, okay, am I hurting anyone? No. Is this feeling, this guilt, a universal guilt? No. Okay, so there's really no need for this. Okay, let the thoughts be there. And the thoughts would be like, oh, but Carolina, you could be really being bad, but what if you don't get outside, blah, blah. All that would still be popping into my head, and I'd be like, yeah, that's fine. Refocusing. So, as the thoughts would come in, I'd just be like refocusing on whatever I was doing. So it could have been that I'd be washing the dishes, or I'd be cooking, or I might even be watching TV. Oh my God, now that's really bad, So whatever I was doing, I would just refocus on what I was doing. And yeah, this one, it only really took, I think it was only about a month until I actually noticed one day that I was at home and I'd been at home all day and I hadn't had that feeling. And it was just like, oh my God, I've had this for years and it's gone. And now I'm okay to be at home and to not go out. And I will also let you know that getting rid of that guilt didn't make me lazy, as in it didn't make me more prone to staying at home, or more prone to being, not being active in the community, because I know that could be a fear. That, but if I don't have that guilt, to push me. But no, I still go out into the community. I still, take my kids out for walks. We go to the park, I go to the beach. I do a lot of stuff. So yeah, it really didn't change me in any bad way. It didn't have any bad side effect. Only good came out of it, which is I can actually be at home, whether I am doing stuff around the house or whether I'm relaxing. I can do that now without having this tremendous guilt that I'm a bad person. So I hope if any of you watching these have had that feeling of guilt for whatever it is, or if you've been experiencing guilt. A lot of people also if they're religious or spiritual, can also feel guilt, as in, oh, maybe the reason I'm going through this anxiety and depression is because I deserve it. That's also a very, very common thing. So if you have that belief or that thought, just know that that's actually quite common. And no, you're not having it because you're paying for something, you know, because you've been bad and now you've got anxiety, or you've been bad and now you have to suffer. No, but it is a very common thought. So know that you're not alone in having that thought. So if you have that, you know, just do try the 3-step technique every time you have that thought. Yeah, it's all right, it can be there. And then just relax the body and refocus. Yeah, so I hope that this video has been helpful to some of you. And, sorry. And, yeah, I hope you're having a good day. Okay.